Money never sleeps, pal.
Hey there, welcome to episode 55 of Money Never Sleeps, a podcast that looks inside the head of entrepreneurs and at what makes them do what they do. I'm Pete Townsend, your co-host of Money Never Sleeps, along with Owen Fitzgerald. This episode of Money Never Sleeps is kindly sponsored by Ireland's fintech and financial services recruitment specialist, Top Tier Recruitment. If you or a colleague need help attracting and retaining great talent for your fintech or financial services company, we highly recommend you have a chat with the team at Top Tier Recruitment, as they really know their stuff. You can find them at toptierrecruitment.com and tell them we sent you. In this episode, we talk to Martin Brown, founder and CEO of Unitek, who are helping financial services companies move from analog to the digital world. Martin and Owen and I know a lot of the same people, and even though Martin and I crossed over at BNP Paribas about 10 years ago, it had been a very long time. There's no better way to reunite old colleagues than through the power of the podcast. So away we go with episode 55 of Money Never Sleeps.
Money never sleeps, pal.
Here we go again. Welcome to Money Never Sleeps. We're here in WeWork Dublin Landings in the offices of our sponsor, Top Tier Recruitment. I'm Pete Townsend.
And I'm Owen Fitzgerald.
And we're here with Martin Brown, the founder and CEO of Unitek. Welcome to the show, Martin.
Hey guys. Yeah, glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. So Martin, I know that you and Owen know each other. And we figured out before we came online today that we crossed over a number of years ago at BNP Paribas. But maybe for our listeners and for me and for Owen, who knows a bit about you, but probably would like to know a bit more, just give us your backstory and how you ended up at this point in your life.
Yeah, it's a long story, Pete. I know I look 21, but I'm not 21 now. But yeah, I guess when it all started, but growing up, I'm from a small town in Yorkshire. It's a mining town, and I was like, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I was like, I like numbers, so I'll be an accountant. So I kind of started on that accountancy journey. And one day I was in my office, and one of the other accountants came into me, and he said, "Come here, I want to show you something." I was like, "What is it?" And he's like, "Watch this." So he had his laptop open, and he clicked a button, and then it was Excel, and his screen started jumping around and flashing. I was like, "Wow, what's that?" And he's like, "Macros. It's amazing, isn't it?" And I was like, "Wow!" And I was like, "I need to learn that." And so I think it was. So I actually taught myself, VB programming, a few years ago, and it was actually, I think that was almost I realized I didn't want to be an accountant, but actually, that was almost the first trigger of, oh, you can do things better, And I think from that is actually where I've gone then over my career, and working in companies, large global corporates, in the US, in Asia, in Australia, but then it's always been that same story. How do we do things better? And that's what we're doing at Unitek now. We're helping companies do things better.
Okay. When I had to look back at your LinkedIn profile, and again, Owen, we really got to line them up for sponsorship here, because I keep saying their name. I saw, and that's what struck the chord of familiarity, and obviously seeing the BNP Paribas, crossover. I'm like, okay, no, I think I remember this guy. Between 2001 and 2017, change manager / project manager for a number of different companies, like you mentioned. Yeah. Norwich Union Life, DST International, BNP Paribas, BNY Mellon, Aviva, KPMG, Zurich, right? And just all triggered by this love of macros.
Right. We moved on from macros, but yeah.
But I mean, how does that whole kind of accountancy, then the turn on into the, not necessarily coding, programming, but technical problem solving through, technology, into, helping businesses change, improve, get better, to then, Unitek. It seems like a natural transition there, but a few leaps of faith in the middle of that story.
Yeah,
connect some of the dots.
Yeah, so I guess a good way of maybe framing it, Pete, is I guess I'd probably describe myself as maybe an entrepreneur. Yeah. I was an entrepreneur within these organizations, and it was like, guys, this is crazy. Why are we doing it this way? It's always just doing that why are we doing this? So it was it's then that believing that you could do something better within these organizations, and I'm making a difference, and a significant difference. So I guess it was that being able to take that risk and having some belief there to be able to make a difference. So, and then I guess it was, working through some of these companies, I started seeing some common challenges, shall we say, around, manual processing, way documents are being managed in a way. You look at, insurance and banking, they're still burdened by, long processing times, it's layers of paperwork, and that has an impact on customer satisfaction. So that it was almost, through that journey, I saw, a significant opportunity, and that's how we got to, Unitek. And now I guess then I flipped from intrapreneur to entrepreneur, and it's like, right, I'm going to do something about this. And that's what we've been doing, I guess, for the last 18 months, doing it at pace.
Okay. And you went through the NDRC accelerator.
We did a pre-accelerator.
Right?
Yeah. So we did a pre-accelerator there. And I guess that helped with some of the learnings. I think if you, like, I've worked in business for a long time, and, I know how to make things happen, but working in business and starting a business and running a business are two completely different things, right? So I think it's all, every day is a school day, and I think that's why I've engaged with, I guess, the NDRC and the likes of Dublin BIC, Enterprise Ireland, the New Frontiers program. I think you may have worked in business for a long time, but actually running a business and actually building a business are two different things. So I think you've always got to try and, learn and leverage those supports that are available.
Okay. All right. And then with Unitek, you're still in semi-stealth mode, or are you kind of out there?
Well, we're out there selling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are building more of the awareness out there. And I think we're still a semi-stealth, but I think that will change in the coming months. We'll be making some big announcements.
And how much liberty do you have to kind of talk about the value proposition and what it is that you're doing?
Look, I'm happy to talk about that. For sure.
Please do.
Yeah. So I guess what we're doing is I guess the way I describe it is we're helping accelerate that move from analog to digital. Yeah. Okay, for financial services companies. I talked about that manual processing piece, and especially with documents. So I guess what we've developed is some proprietary tech that actually can read scanned images of documents, including those with handwriting. We can suck that data out to almost 100% accuracy and then automate data entry into any system. So if that's maybe core operations for some of these companies. And so what we're able to do is actually, help companies maybe do the same thing, but actually do it quicker, smarter, more efficiently, and to a better quality.
10 times better?
10 million times better.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But it's obviously a big space because, you see the report, I think it was last year, and the Goldman Sachs talked about saving 360,000 hours of engaging lawyers because they were able to automate a lot of the standard kind of paperwork that's involved in loan transactions or whatever.
Yeah. No, it's an emergent. There is an emergent space, and I guess there's guys out there. There's one company who I know about, and I think 2017 they were 13 people, and then some VC spotted them, and they raised $400 million, and now they're 2,200 people. But I guess where I'd like to say that we've got something on those guys, So I think there is. But it is, everyone's talking about, trying to do these things better. There is so much opportunity there. Pete, I know you're, I guess, going over from your neck of the woods. We were invited to the US last year, and we were actually amazed to see how manual work is done in the US. Only 1 in 9 transactions are actually digitized. So it's Absolutely. Like, they still have checks there.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
When you think of the innovation that comes out of certain parts of the US, and then they still have checks for things.
Exactly.
It's a big country.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah. It's like technology is based on either coast, and then the whole middle of America is still extremely untechnologicalized, if that's a word. Not the rest. I mean, I'm shooting myself in the mouth and in the foot here, forgetting about Chicago, Austin, Texas. Boston. Boston's on the East Coast, buddy. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. But so what, I suppose, at what point did you decide to make the jump then?
Yeah, so I think it was probably about just 2 years ago. I think so. I'd actually been doing some work with you've mentioned some of the insurance companies, and I was doing some consulting with one of the large retail banks here, and it was I thought I knew there was a problem, and then I saw some of these technologies that were starting to emerge, and I thought, okay. But there was a gap on the document processing. There's things like RPA that are out there, right? But the big gap is, nobody can do the handwriting recognition, and so, but most of these organizations, they run on handwritten forms. So it was, that's where I saw the opportunity, and it was like, let's just do something about it. So it was like 2 years ago, I had some initial conversations with Dublin BIC, spoke to my local enterprise office just to, because there's some great supports here in Ireland. And then it was, Feb 18, it's like, we incorporated, I built my first neural net myself. And then it was like, okay, guys, we need to start pushing on this. So, 2 years ago, but then, we've now grown to, we've got a team of like 10 engineers working with us. We're working in, Germany, UK, Ireland, talking to one of the large insurers in the US at the moment. We were invited to San Fran to work with a bank, but we were only 6 months in, and it was like, everybody wants to go to San Fran, but it was like, no, we're only 6 months in, guys. We can't go to San Fran quite yet. But so I think it was 2 years ago, and just and just.
Was it always a matter of time that you'd eventually make the move from intrapreneur to entrepreneur? I'd imagine there was always a sense of frustration within your organization that you just can't do what you'd possibly want to do, or haven't identified the problem areas. I think it's I think it was almost I remember a few years ago I heard someone talk about startup, and I was like, what's a startup? And I was like, and then it was almost, then I read it and I was like, oh wow, okay, yeah. And then I think it was almost that planted a seed for me. And then, just through, you're right, working in some of those companies, there's some frustration there. And it was like, okay, so if I'm frustrated, imagine how many other people are frustrated. So let's do something about it. Yeah.
And is that kind of the answer to why now? Is that you kind of, you figured it out in terms of running a business?
Yeah, exactly. It was exactly that. So, understand how to run a business, how to, attract talent. Talent in Dublin's hard, but, we've got a great CTO in Danya and a great team that's working with her. And, we continue to grow the team. We've got a great bunch of advisors, and you need that. I think when you're starting out, people who've been there, seen it, done it, you definitely need that.
Okay, it's interesting that you're tackling that harder end of the spectrum first, like with paper documents with handwriting on it, because for years and years we've seen solutions coming to market that have said, well, we can take data and we can do better things with it, right? But it's in standard formats, it's all well structured.
Exactly.
Then we saw things coming to market that were, well, we could start dealing with unstructured data.
Yeah.
But it's still data in a file, right? You're taking the paper market, and is that kind of part of the overall strategy without giving it all away? Is it, listen, there's so many people playing on one side of the field, you're coming at it from the other side of the field into the financial markets?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. So we get asked, or there's also comments like, what, you doing documents? Like, well, everyone's doing digital these days. And I'm like, you obviously haven't worked in financial services. We've been going for, 18 months now. And, I'd say the companies that we've worked with, are processing 250 million documents. So that's just the companies that we've worked with. So, you're right in terms of handwriting. It's like, we have gone for one of the hardest problems that you could go for, but, we have something. And I think it's, so I think everything else should be easy from here on, right? But I don't think it will be. But I guess we're focusing on documents right now. But we've already we've already got some things that are going on in the background as well. That are some things that are maybe coming out of research as well. So so we're thinking about the next thing already. So I think you always have to be thinking about the next thing.
You do, and I think it's smart what you're doing, because when I imagine the digital transformation of financial services, especially in the operational environment, there's going to be an element of that is low-hanging fruit. There's going to be an element of that is harder work, and then there's going to be the last 20 to 25%, which is going to be really hard. You're going after that part first, which means that you're going to be well positioned. If you're going after the hardest part first, that means you could probably do the easier stuff as well at some stage.
Exactly.
So go to market with the hard stuff, and then eventually unleash the beast.
Exactly.
Good strategy.
But I think it points to understanding the problem from the inside as well, because obviously you would assume people would think, okay, well, let's just digitize the process. That's easy. But actually having experienced the pain and suffering that the paperwork brings, because I found when we were in Future Finance, we were looking to go into a new market, and like we used DocuSign for all our documents in the UK. But they didn't accept online signature as a proof of signature in the market we were targeting, which we didn't anticipate, because obviously there was a natural assumption that, you can just sign it online, and we're like, no, and then that meant, how the hell are we going to get that means we have to arrange to courier, or we would have had to arrange to courier documents to students and courier them back to our office in the UK, which would have just massively ramped up our costs. So we ruled out that market. But again, people would just assume, can you just use DocuSign or whatever?
Exactly. And and I think there is those solutions there, and I think we recognize that DocuSign's not, and I don't want to be plugging those guys, but I guess digital signatures, that's the people still want to see that wet signature, but actually, some of the things that we're working on right now, it allows you to, again, we could have solved that problem, I guess, is without giving away too much. That whole, you could have gone into that market with some of the things that we're working on right now.
And that's the thing, it's forgetting that actually some places haven't even moved to the point that you can sign things online. So
exactly.
Those solutions don't apply to those companies yet.
Yeah, exactly. And change. I worked in change, like Pete talked about that, and like change is really hard. It's really hard. Like people have done things the same way for 15, 20 years. Trying to just say, we're going to do it differently. That's really difficult. But that's why we recognize that. So that's why we're saying, well, you can do the thing, you can do exactly how you've been doing it, but actually just give us the data and we'll process it for you. And actually, so you'll get those efficiencies of digital transformation, but without having to change everything. Yeah.
And I know it's still early days for you guys, Martin. 18 months you've been in it, but I mean, early days in terms of, all right, are we at $1 million a month revenue? Not yet. But what was the moment so far in the life cycle of the company or lifetime of the company where you're like, okay, we got something here?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of different moments, for sure. I think I knew we had something anyway, and I think but then when you start getting the validation from, some of the big companies that we're working with, and, recently, I can't give the name, but, it's a large US based insurer, and they're like processing 44 million documents a year. And it's like, I was like, I'll charge you 10 cents for those. But it was like that you have moments like that where it's where they're actually, they're saying to us what we some of our assumptions and our kind of foundations is that it'd be so hard to change. 44 million documents, various different processes. The cost for us to be able to try and just change as an organization would be huge. So I think we've had a number of those moments. Last year we were invited to Boston for an InsurTech event. So it's like pitching to various insurers, VCs and other people in the insurance industry. And I think again we were the only non-US based company that were actually there in Boston. And again that kind of made me think, well, we're from Ireland, and we're now in Boston, and we're the only non-US based company that have been invited to this event. So again, that's almost, telling me that, we're onto something there, and what we're building is quite special.
Did you find you had an advantage with the Boston Irish?
I'll try and leverage it going forward.
Do your best.
Yeah, do my best. Yeah.
Good man. If you think about what's helped you so far in terms of your own personality and the traits that you have, anything that you can point to that you think has been a boon to your success so far?
Yeah. Like I think you have to have self-belief, right? But I think you also have to have almost a bit of craziness about you. I guess you have to be crazy to start a business, but there's nothing more fulfilling, I think. But I think it's having that, working in that change industry, you have to have a level of, tenacity. You're trying to achieve, some specific outcomes. You might have difficult stakeholders. So I think that's almost been great foundations in terms of, I guess, building me as who I am, understanding that you might not get it right the first time, but you just got to keep going. And, you have good days, but you have bad days. And it's, I guess, you've got to learn from the bad days and not dwell on it. So, you might have companies who you think are just about to sign, and then they pull the plug on you. And you're like, okay, just move on. Okay, just maybe there's some learnings, the things that you can maybe do better, or then do it. I think, I think you've just got to just keep going. I think that's probably one of the things that about me is, just keep going. And I say that to my team every day. We've just got to, just keep going. We're going to have some good days, some bad days, but you just got to work through it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, what I found works well is that you get the bad news, you decide what to do next before you go to sleep that night. Now, don't stay up all night thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
But then when you wake up in the morning, you've slept on the next step already.
Yeah.
And you've digested that, and that you wake up in the morning ready to go.
If I've slept that night.
Yeah. Well, they say, I love this quote recently from Ben Horowitz, is that he said, as a founder, I slept like a baby. I'd wake up every few hours crying.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And who do you lean on the most on this past journey?
Yeah, I think various people, if I'm honest, and I think that's one of the things that I've recognized along the way is that you need to surround yourself with, people, the right people, but different people. As I said, I know how to, run an internal business, but run an external, my own business is different, but there's so many different, supports out there. So it depends what today's problem is. But, I have a good bunch of people around me who I can lean on, so if it's about fundraising, if, I have someone there who I can lean on. If it's just about, some specific thoughts on strategy, again, I have people there, commercial. Again, I've got a great guy, in the commercial space. So I think you just need to know what your strengths are, and then maybe where you need that support. I think you need to surround your people with that.
And have you found it, because we spoke to Klaus from Know Your Customer, was talking the last time about how as the business has progressed, he's actually ended up having to learn different skills because he actually does less of the development and less of all the things that he started out. Have you found that it's been kind of similar, or is it a different journey from when you started and you're to now kind of trying to scale and the skills that are needed?
Yeah, for sure. I think, as I said, I built our first neural net. It wasn't anything fancy, but that wasn't going to be the way forward. So I think, I think you have to recognize where you need to be adding some value, but then where you need to learn and understand some things. I think, I think marketing's an interesting thing these days. Working in change, I remember, if there was ever cost cutting, like marketing was always the first.
Marketing and HR.
Yeah, it was always the first place that people would go, right? But I think, social media, marketing, businesses have to be out there. And I kind of knew that. But Pete, we were talking earlier about if we're in stealth mode or, and those kind of things. And, we're kind of out there, but I think you need to be, really out there. And I think, that's something I've learned, I guess, in terms of how you can, broadened. And I guess even, I joke with the team about, world domination, and maybe I shouldn't say that. We maybe should edit this piece, but I think it's more about just global ambition. We have global ambition, and to be in all these different markets. But it's not just a case of, okay, today we're in the US, tomorrow we're in Asia. I think there has to be a plan and a strategy about how you get there, how these things don't, you can't do that for free. You need to have a clear, succinct strategy around that. So I think that's one of those. I think it's almost. I knew where we wanted to go, but I think it's more you will learn along the way in terms of how you do that, right? And you can't just take over the world on day one.
Any really hard decisions you've had to make so far, and things that you had to really mull over before you pulled the trigger?
Like I mentioned, I think so. I remember we were 6 months in, and it's like a plug for Enterprise Island, but Enterprise Island have been great to us so far. But we were 6 months in, and we got an introduction to a bank in San Francisco through the New York office, and we were talking to their it was their head of like commercial lending, and they said, look, we spoke to them actually. It must have been April, May, and they're like, guys, come out to us in August, and let's see where we go from that. And we were, August, we would have been 6 months in, and it was like everybody wants to go. Everyone talks about wanting to be in San Fran, but it was like, you have to almost put your bring your emotions in check as well. It's like, guys, we can get to San Fran, but we don't need to go now. Let's there's opportunity for us here in Ireland, in the UK more closely. So that was a kind of a tough piece. I guess obviously. Jumping into your own business, I think that's a hard decision.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, looking back on that now, right? What would an alternate reality look like if you had done that?
If I had
gone to San Francisco.
Yeah. Don't ask me that, Pete.
No. I mean,
no, but I mean, you could potentially be still on pilot programs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that if you had done
years.
it would have been a huge launch pad.
Yeah.
But
Might not
knowing
have been.
what you know now,
So-
what happened after you made that decision.
I think it was the right decision.
There you go.
Yeah, because like San Fran, and I think it's highly competitive over there. It's almost you become a small fish in a big pond. Whereas here, like Ireland's a great launch pad for a business in terms of think about its scale, then you think about it in terms of what's next to us in terms of the UK and Europe. So I think it was the right decision, and it's proven to be the right decision. We're working here in Ireland, I say the UK, Germany. So and we've got the future's looking good for 2020 and beyond. So yeah, it was the right decision. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we could probably talk for a few more hours about, but I mean, obviously we're going to be working together a bit over the next while.
We are.
Big plans for 2020. I always kind of like to wrap things up by asking about something that people wouldn't expect to know about you.
Okay.
Is there anything you'd like to share with the listeners?
Well, there was the accounting story. I mean, that's one thing. People want to. I started life out as an accountant, but I think what maybe one thing I would say is that people, you might have an idea of what you want to be, but maybe it turns out that you don't want to do that. But I think make the jump, I think, is probably one of the things I would say. People worried about starting a business. I think, look, it might not turn out as you expect, but that's fine. Like go and do something else, learn from it. I guess maybe one of the other things that I'm a Manchester United fan. I love football.
I am myself.
And I guess maybe the one thing that people don't know is that I'm still waiting for the call from Manchester United, to go. I'm going to make it, but it's not going to happen. But,
I thought I had my in because my mum's cousin used to manage some of the underage teams at United, so I thought that was my route to success, but it didn't work out either. So
well, yeah, if that didn't work, yeah.
Satisfy myself with just only watching these days, but trying to get over maybe once a year to some of the games.
Yeah,
that's about as far as I can go.
Yeah, same, and I continually brainwashing my my 7-year-old in terms of Manchester United and.
Oh yeah, there's no choice.
There is no choice.
I had no choice growing up. Man United all the way.
Exactly.
And one thing we're about to ask everybody out there, but we'll ask you as well, is, and I don't say Paul Pogba, but if there's one person that you could see on Money Never Sleeps, who would it be?
No,
that's potentially realistic.
Yeah, potentially realistic. We had
Batman.
Ollie Walsh from Pippin said Batman.
Oh really?
And if you couldn't get Batman, get Iron Man.
Iron Man, yeah, he'd be pretty cool, wouldn't he? Imagine that. It was there was actually it's funny because Tony Stark would be great. I think one of the things that would be a great person. So I was lucky. So we were in Germany earlier this year on a kind of almost on a serious note, and we were at this conference, and it's how we managed to get some contracts out of Germany. And there was actually the chief innovation officer from Google was actually talking. He was doing a keynote speech for an hour. He's also a professor at Stanford. So he did this thing for an hour, and it was it was phenomenal. Do you know what I mean?
Mind-blowing.
It was mind-blowing, and I say to people now, everyone talks about bucket list, and it was almost like I put on my bucket list, listen to the chief innovation officer from Google talking, and it's like I ticked it off straight away. He was like,
there you go.
It was it was phenomenal, and
right, we'll look him up.
Yeah, and it was actually he did this piece about always about half full. I'm looking at the cups we've got here, guys, and he did a piece on that, and it was it was always about trying to driving innovation, and always just being optimistic, and he'd be great. He'd just talk for an hour and you listen, and everybody else would listen.
It'd be an easy interview.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's see what we can do.
We'll look him up.
Yeah,
we'll get some feelers out there for it.
Super.
Great. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Martin. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Cheers, guys.
Thanks.
Money never sleeps, pal.
That wraps it up, folks. Thanks to Martin for opening up his mind to help us figure out why he does what he does. Contacts for Martin are in the show notes for this episode on moneyneversleeps.ie, so check us out online. Remember, if you or a colleague need help attracting and retaining great talent for your fintech or financial services company, get in touch with a team at Top Tier Recruitment as they really know their stuff. You can find them at toptierrecruitment.com. If you want to get involved with the show, drop us a line on info@moneyneversleeps.ie or DM us on Twitter at MNSShow. We're on all the major podcast platforms. Remember, Money Never Sleeps is spelled as all one word. As for me, I increase the odds of startup success. DM me on Twitter at Pete Townsend NV if you want to know more. And you can follow Owen on Twitter at Owen Fitzgerald9. Finally, thanks to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for recording and editing this podcast. Till next time, thanks for listening. See ya.